Hello and welcome to an interview episode of the Landman podcast. Usually I'm talking into the mic by myself, but I'm joined here by Mr. Landon Bleau in a faraway land. Landon, welcome to the Landman podcast, man.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I don't think you're in Kansas anymore. What's going on with you? Where are you at right now? Give us a little bit of the listeners an understanding of where's your physical location, right? And then also talk a little bit about team size, revenue, what you're doing, what type of deals per month you're doing, so we can kind of understand where you're coming from.
Yep, definitely. So I kind of started lane investing. I guess it was late 2023. And then, had kind of that first rough 6 months that a lot of people have. Was able to quit my job. So I've been doing this full time since I quit. Put in my 2 weeks, May of 2024, finished up end of June 2024. And so I've been a full time lane investor for whatever that is, 8, 9, 10-ish months now. And then, my overall goal with lane investing when I initially started was to make $50,000, so that I could quit my W-2 and then spend a summer in Europe. Luckily, we've been able to kind of surpass the $50,000 goal, and I am currently in Barcelona, Spain. I've been here since the end of April. And then we'll be kind of just jumping around. So we're spending a month in Barcelona here, kind of jumping around Spain a little bit on the weekends, still being able to, run the business remotely. Obviously, it's a super cool business where you can do it anywhere in the world, literally. We'll be spending the month of June in Lake Como, Italy,
Cool.
bouncing around, doing some weekends there as well. And then we'll be kind of just jumping around Europe during July. So yeah, kind of running the business while we're there. So I had my first sale in terms of like revenue, gross profit. I had my first sale, I think it was April. It was either April or May of 2024 where I actually sold a property. So pretty much everything that I've done has been in the last 12 months, really, maybe 12 and a half months. But so far, I think we were at 2.1 or 2.2 million in total revenue. And then I think realized gross profit total is in the 800, in that whole 12-month span, is in the eight to 900,000 ballpark. And then net would be, I guess I'd have to double check net. It's probably like, I want to say our expenses run around 50-ish%, 40 to 50%, I think. So, obviously back that out for, mailers, everything, team, everything like that. So team size currently, we have 6 total team members, including myself. So it's two full-time texters, a data analyst, an executive assistant, a lead manager, and then me. So that's kind
Yeah.
of the team.
Yeah, and I mean, look, dude, one of the things that people always say is, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna go do this Europe thing. What I really admire about you, man, is you actually did it, right? Because there's the comfort in the I'm just gonna go for I know you, right? I know you personally, and for a hard charging guy like yourself, a very high performer, it's kind of hard to do that. It's kind of hard to unplug. How have you managed your team and yourself and kind of responsibilities as you've been abroad?
Yeah, so it's basically just flipping the day. So Europe is, I wouldn't say too difficult. It's actually nice in a way, right? You're in the States, there's like always something you can do, always someone you can call, something you can fix. When you're in Europe, we're currently 6 hours behind kind of the Eastern time zone. So I don't really start work until call it like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoons. I really get the whole mornings off and then kind of work till, let's call it like midnight. But it's not, bad. I mean, it's an incredible lifestyle over here where you're able to, take breaks, kind of throughout the day. I'm very, very scheduled and, particular about my time and like, very dialed into, if I'm going to be doing something in the business, like it needs to be worthwhile. Otherwise I could be, sitting on the terrace or sitting at a cafe here in Barcelona. So it's actually helped me quite a bit. If there were different, if there were things that I was doing, say in the States, where it was just like I kind of, not really enjoyed busy work, but you just feel more productive at the end of the day. Having done something kind of all the time, and being able to say you put in 10 or 12 hour days is sometimes just fun, and sometimes you just feel productive at the end of that. But I'm very intentional about my time here. Whereas if it's not really generating revenue, then I'm delegating. I'm getting very good at delegating over kind of the last 3 weeks because I would just rather not be spending my time, looking through spreadsheets and stuff like that. I'd rather train someone, record a quick, Loom video, jump in a call, kind of train and delegate this to somebody else on my team so that I can get my time back. And then my time, focused on the business is pretty much sales calls and then kind of overall leadership calls, training calls, everything like that, rather than, working through a spreadsheet or, something that's not really generating revenue.
So it's been a force function, right? I love that, man. It's kind of really nice because, again, like for a high performer, it's very easy to just keep going, just to keep working. And I find, I'm like, I'll fill my days up, right? I'll fill my days up. What has been the two or three things that you've found? Hey, this is a huge delegation that I've made in my business that has been allowed me to really buy back my time.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was kind of the data, the pricing. I always wanted to double check everything. For kind of my pricing analyst, and usually my tweaks were in the ballpark of like 10 to 15-ish%. And obviously anybody knows, that knows land, if you're within 10 or 15%, like it's right. So by kind of delegating that off, especially in terms of sending out a mailer or something like that. So by delegating that off, that was probably 5 hours, maybe not quite 5 hours, but just the mental stress. And then what I've noticed is we've never missed like a mailer or kind of our KPI for a week in terms of mailers getting sent out since I've delegated that. And all it was for the delegation was, recording something really quick as to how to, upload it to Rocket Postcard Mania. And then just trusting them that the numbers are going to be right. Because again, I was checking everything before and they were always within the ballpark. I just wanted to make little tweaks, just where I felt like a little bit better. This was maybe a little bit high in this zip code. So I guess I would say that was the main thing, where it's like, the mental stress of just like going to bed and it's like, oh, I didn't get to that today. Oh, I didn't get to that. Now it's like somebody else did it. So it was huge, huge.
So that's really good. Is there anything else that comes to mind that was something that you made a shift on, maybe one or two other things?
Yeah, so delegating a lot of stuff. So I hired an executive assistant, I want to say it was about 2-ish months ago. So like all county calls, regulation calls, contact, maybe we got a person off a highway contacting the Department of Transportation, writing up the contracts, sending everything out. So kind of all that overall admin work that doesn't, it's necessary, but doesn't drive revenue. It's 100% outsourced. And what I've also noticed is like my executive assistant, absolute killer. He's like taking a lot on and becoming like a very, very good owner of a lot of these different things. And it helps him really understand the business and be more, helpful. What I notice him doing now, since I've delegated a lot of that stuff, is he's actually having one-on-one meetings with different people on the team to discuss strategies and everything like that. So by delegating it to him, it's giving him more responsibility, taking stuff off my plate. He's way more detail oriented than I am, and we're getting a lot more, kind of accomplished overall. End up being, able to actually focus my time on like sales calls, comping, making final offers on properties, which is actually, where the money's actually made, rather than, just the stupid little things I was doing beforehand. Necessary, but not necessary, necessarily needed to be done by me.
Dude, it's funny. I always say to people, and I've said this to you, I know I've said this to you, that entrepreneurs are bad employees, right? They build the processes and don't follow them, right? You build a process, but you're like, well, this time I'm going to do it this way, and this time I'm going to do it this way. And you have to be disciplined enough to give the loom or give the explanation to another person, and then you hand it off, and then you hold them accountable. But a lot of times we're bad at holding ourselves accountable.
100%.
And that's really interesting. I want to talk about this executive assistant because I was along for the ride with this, and I know it was like I remember I was like, dude, you need to have someone on your team that can help with all this stuff. I'm not taking responsibility of this hire whatsoever, but tell me about the attributes of this person because I find, as you know, dude, this hire is a game changer. It, but there's a price, there's a number that you need to get above. I remember we talked, there's a number you need to get above because if you're below it, then it becomes a doer and not a thinker. So tell us all about the hiring of this person, how you knew it was the right one. Go through that whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I hired. It was a, I guess like a headhunter company. They're called Sagan. They basically brought me. I want to say it was in the ballpark of like five-ish people to kind of interview. I think I passed on kind of all five of those people. So I kind of changed around my hiring process. Where before it was essentially one interview is like that felt good, or good enough, I should say. And this was a position I remember sitting down with you, where it's like this is a position that could like literally change my life and has since then. But in this person, like I talked about, gave them different kind of tasks. We did a trial day,
Cool.
checked references, had him set up, some different things there. So kind of changed around the process in terms of hiring. And then, just be completely candid in terms of price. This is a $2,000 a month hire. It's an overseas hire, so that's typically very expensive for overseas. But worth every single cent that I'm paying. So it's kind of getting above that, hump where I was like, I wanted to keep it around whatever, 15, $1,600. And it was just like, being able to kind of talk with you a little bit and be like, pay you a little bit more for the right person, because it'll be a kind of a life changer and, a business changer as well. And it absolutely has been.
Yeah, that's a nuance. Like, for American hires, there's a massive difference between an $80,000 a year hire and 120. I recently, I'm bringing on a guy that's going to be my director of revenue, and he's expensive. And I was happy to pay him the number and give him a huge upside because I know that he's going to make a lot of money, and he should, right? But bringing someone of that caliber is important. Now, what not a lot of people talk about is in the global talent world, there are those jumps too. I find the jump for every position, it's a little different. For a lead manager, it's a little different. For a acquisition manager, for an executive assistant, when there's a two in front of it, it changes the game. They become almost like this pseudo chief of staff. So what does this person do for you, man? I mean, walk us through like what's a day to day, what do they do, and when's it the right time to hire this person?
Yeah, great question. So mine kind of, acts as I would guess I would call it transaction coordinator too, because we don't necessarily have the full volume for me to kind of have a transaction coordinator and an executive assistant. And I think it's very beneficial for him while we kind of, have a full-time transaction manager to have him kind of involved in the transactions. So we meet every single day. I would say it's usually planned for 30 minutes, but I would say we usually end up, running it at least 45 minutes. It's kind of very, very scheduled. So he's always telling me what, meetings are. We're kind of running through the day, running through different deals, different updates, whether it's an improvement we're making to a property, brush hogging something, getting a survey, different things like that. He's always, any improvement that he needs or any improvement that we need, in terms of the business, he's calling, getting multiple quotes. When we go to actually send a contract, he's looking up the deed, making sure that the people that say they're on the deed are actually on the deed. So we're not just, throwing out a contract, getting all excited when they sign it and it turns out it's, a cousin and they have 17 other cousins that are also part owners in the property. He's researching different things like that, getting quotes on everything. So it's very, very helpful. And then he's also kind of contacting the county. So any properties that we get under contract, if it's reliant on, perk test or anything like that, what we can build on the property, utilities that are there, confirming utilities that are there. If the seller is telling us there's water, he's confirming that there's water. He's listing the properties when we actually close them and sell them. If we are self-listing and not listing with a broker, he's self-listing all of those, writing up the MLS descriptions for all of those. If I'm supposed to be in a meeting and I miss, or forget about the meeting or something like that, he's calling me on my cell phone, being like, dude, get in this meeting, like you're late or something like that. So it's all around like EA, transaction coordinator, just a incredible help, and exactly what I need. And extremely detail oriented, which I am not detail oriented whatsoever.
What I found with my executive assistant, and I see that you're doing this too, is they're the ultimate utility player. Okay, so my executive assistant has gone from a personal executive assistant into transaction coordination, back to executive assistant, back to transaction coordination, back to executive assistant, all the way to HR because we hire so many people. We're hiring like 3 acquisition managers now. We're hiring more lead managers. And so she does initial interviews and she's like the utility player when we need someone to come in and out. And so what's really interesting is um, there are different levels of executive assistant. There's an admin assistant, there's executive, there's chief of staff, and then above chief of staff, there's the operations manager. So a lot of times, the hardest part about our business is how do we know what level we need to hire? Right? Because number one, we don't have the experience to understand that, right? We don't understand. Should I have an admin assistant that's 800 to $1,000 a month that manages tasks? Can I afford an executive assistant? Can I afford a chief of staff 2,800, 3,000 a month, and then an operations manager? If we're talking global talent, 4,000, 3,500, 4,000 a month. Those nuances are so important, but they're really hard. And the problem is, dude, if you make a mistake here, it's going to cost you months. It's super expensive. And so it's this phantom expense that you're not aware of. Having that revolving door and having people that have come into your organization and kind of come in and gone out. So the question is, now you have this team, right? You have this team that's starting to churn and burn. Tell us a little bit about volume of what you're doing. Tell us about where you are now and where you want to go. And so we can kind of understand where obviously you got profitability. You're at a level that most land investors dream of being at. But where in terms of monthly volume, and then where do you want to go most specifically?
Yeah, so current volume is we're doing in the ballpark. We're trying to get to 30,000 mailers a month. It's a little difficult to kind of ramp up the revenue. I would say we're averaging about 25 to 30,000 a month. Haven't hit the 30,000 consistently yet, but rated about 25, 30,000 mailers a month, and then about 150,000 text a month is what we're currently doing in terms of outbound marketing. And then in terms of where we're currently at in terms of contracts, Q1 we were at a little bit less volume in terms of outbound marketing, but Q1 we got 12 total contracts, so about one a week. And then Q2 so far, we're whatever halfway through Q2, and I want to say we have in the ballpark of 8 contracts locked up so far. So we're getting, I think April we are at about a contract a week, and then May we've been at about 1.5 contracts a week. And the goal is I really really want to get to kind of 2 contracts a week, 8 contracts a month, 25% fallout rate. We closed 6 deals at $25,000 a pop, have about 50,000 in expenses. So, gross profit would be about 1.8, net profit about 1.2 is kind of where we're tracking and aiming to go.
Yeah, and then you're gonna buy a private jet, right? And then you're gonna fly to Europe with
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. I mean, obviously super impressive. And what a lot of times I find, well, let me ask you this question. What was the difference between last year and this year in terms of psychology, s- structure, and any other insights that you had that allowed you to get to, because there's that level, man, that it's like the 400K to 1,000 is the death zone. It's the death zone. There's no information. There's very few people doing it, and the biggest problems are more than just go send out more mailers. There's a hiring structure, et cetera. So how did you get through that death zone?
Yeah, so it was being surrounded by other land investors, joining kind of a mastermind, and then also hiring people that are smarter than you that can kind of coach you. So I guess I would say in terms of overall what last year was absolutely like everything was on fire all the time. I probably worked on average in the ballpark of 12 to 15 hours a day, Monday through Friday, last year.
Last.
And then probably another 4 to 8 hours on weekends. So I was putting in like probably 80 to 100 hours a week last year. This year I'm probably 7 to 8 hours a day. Sometimes it might be less or more depending on the day. I'm pretty much completely taken off all Fridays now. So I'm probably only at 30 to 35 hours, and we're doing not I guess right around double the volume that we were doing last year. We're much more structured. We're getting more done with less of my time because of kind of the team structure. Everybody knows what they're accountable for. We have KPIs for every single person. We have KPIs as a business that we want to hit. We're structure. We have kind of the team meetings now, going through all KPIs. Everybody knows that what they're responsible for, and it's very much working as a unit now. So it's been super super cool to kind of see that. change overall. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between last year and this year. Way less time, maybe like a third, maybe a fourth as much time, and we're doing double the volume.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So obviously it wasn't all smooth sailing. So what have you tried before we get into that? One of the things that I notice, and I know you know this, is when you try a new marketing channel, initiative, hire, anything that you put new into our business, unfortunately, our cycles of feedback, our feedback loops are really long, right? They're so long. They're 3 months, they're 6 months. We don't know how we're going to get to, whatever the number that we're looking for. And a lot of times that feedback loop burns people out. It burns people out psychologically, but also cash flow wise, because they don't know how to project out. Okay. So, in order to help our listeners prevent them from doing that, what have you tried that has flopped miserably? And what kind of feedback or advice would you give the listeners to maybe improve their probability of not or decrease their probability of doing that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the main thing that I really messed up in 2024, we were good at text, we were good at mail. And I was like, if we're good at text, we're good at mail, we're going to be good at anything. That's not true at all. We did not have the processes, we didn't have the people, we didn't have. So I added simultaneously, we doubled our texting volume, our mail volume, added cold calling, and added PPC in a matter of 2 weeks. And that blew up everything. I was not able to, I had not, like, I didn't have the team then that I have now. I had two people on the team then. It was a pricing analyst and a texter. So I was in charge of all these closing, answering all the, phone calls from the text people, all the phone calls from the mail people, getting back to all the cold call people. If anybody knows PPC, if you don't respond within 36 seconds, you lost the lead. So that was the biggest mistake that I made. And an additional mistake that I made, it didn't actually hurt us too bad, but self-funding too many of my deals last year instead of using that capital for marketing was another stupid thing that I did. If you think about it in terms of, even if you have a 50-50 equity split, which is, kind of standard in land, but essentially your return on that money is going to be, two, right? Because essentially if we buy property for 100,000, we sell it for 200,000. Now we get 100,000 in profit, but if we would have had a 50-50 equity split, we get 50,000 in profit. So if we were to put that into marketing, we could get 5 to 10 to 15x our money. So why would you trade a two x return on your money for a 10x return on your money? So that was a huge mistake that I made. And it cost me not only in terms of, having to slightly decrease our mail volume until we sold a property, we had to decrease the listing price significantly. We are very aggressive with our price drops last year because I had to sell the property to get the money back in the business. So it cost me in terms of like what I could have actually sold the property for. And then it also just cost me in terms of like stress, right? If you have I was running at whatever $25,000 a month in expenses. And if I only had $5,000 in my bank account, there were times that happened last year. You're just stressed, so you're not thinking, wisely. You're not making the best decisions for the business.
Right, right. Those are really good pieces of feedback. I want to push on or go into one of them. So you increase this volume, right? Number one, why did you do it this way? And number two, if you were to do it again and you had to do it again, how would you have done it differently?
Yeah. So the reason we did increase the volume is we had a little bit of success in kind of I think it was end of Q2 or beginning of Q3. And we were like closing, whatever, call it, one deal every two-ish weeks, or not closing, getting under contract, right in that ballpark. And we had some good volume. We had some good deals closing, some very profitable deals closing in the 40 to $60,000 range. And I was just like, well, shoot, if we're making, on track to make whatever $500,000 this year with this volume. Well, if I just double everything and then add on some other stuff, then surely we'll make $1 million if I just double that. And add on all these other things as well. That was stupid because we didn't have the processes. I did not have the bandwidth. I was already probably working 12-ish hours a day before we doubled everything. So when we doubled everything, it all kind of broke. What I would say is, if you want to do more marketing, just do the exact marketing that you're doing at a higher volume. One of the things that I remember you saying is you can make, $1 million in any singular channel. It could be cold calling, it could be, texting, it could be mail. If you were to just do more volume, you already have the processes, right? Because, I know we've talked about it. PPC lead is extremely hot. Half the time's a scam, but it's significantly different sales process than like a cold call lead. A mail lead is also very hot. So a mail lead is a little bit different. So just you already know what's working if you're working in this business and closing deals. Just increase the volume in exactly what you're doing.
Dude, I can't like yes, yes. I know we've talked about this many times and it's so true. It's very difficult though. So, besides having someone in your corner, right, to kind of talk with you, because sometimes we just need that feedback. Someone's like, "Dude, what are you're crushing this channel. We're all so insulated in our own worlds, isolated." Um, how have you avoided shiny object syndrome?
Yeah, so it is tough. It is, yeah, no matter where you're at, it is tough to do. I would say the biggest thing is we have increased kind of the volume of what we were doing. So I want to say end of last year, we're closer to like 15 to 20,000 mailers, and then I think about 50,000 texts. So we've increased that to the point where I feel like we're, pretty close to maxed out. Sure, you can always kind of increase your volume there, but it's also been, talking, running decisions by you, where it's like, hey, I want to build out, this, as an example, a cold calling team. Is like, dude, that's a process. Like, you can't just, start on Friday and have it, kind of completed by Monday. So just talking to people that have built things out, getting their timeline, and then, realistic expectations. Don't just chase something, sign up for, whatever, 12 months of something before you talk to someone smarter than you that's kind of doing it or tried it and failed. Because, why try to figure out this stuff on your own if you just ask somebody a question and they give you, 6 months worth of advice and, save you $20,000.
Yeah, and the thing is with any marketing channel, I'll take this to the grave. It takes 6 months for it to get good. And it's not just 6 months. It's 6 months of tracking everything. The question is, if you're doing texting, are you changing your templates every week? If you're doing cold calling, do you have two different types of openings? If you're doing mailer, are you checking and changing the outside of the mail, the inside of the mail? Oh, okay. So when you do that, then you deserve to do the next thing, right? And so a lot of people want to scale into something else because they think it's easy mode. But with cold calling, don't expect to be profitable for 6 months. Because not only do you have to get a new channel up and running, you got to hire a manager, you got to hire team members, you got to put skip tracing, you got to train the team members. That's going to take a month and a half. Okay, and then after that, you have a cash conversion cycle. That's going to be another 90 to 180 days. Okay, so you don't bring in money for 6 months. Can you afford to do that? Most of the times, the answer is no, unless you have enough cash flow from other things to help stabilize that. But in my experience, like when I built this my department, one of my outbound departments, for me it was frustrating for 4 to 5 months. It's one of the departments are just getting super super profitable, and I'm not a chip off the block, right? I really track my stuff. We have a whole multiple different processes. Like we do this thing right, and it still takes so much time. So Len, you've had a pretty explosive year and a half, year and 9 months. What would you do differently if you started over today?
Ooh, I guess I would probably be more willing to invest. And I'm not just saying this because I'm kind of working with you. I would 100% invest in kind of coaching up front, or something that is, somebody, maybe some sort of mastermind or something like that, getting around somebody particular or like a group of people, and kind of bouncing ideas off of them, because the opportunity cost of trying to figure out a lot of this stuff on your own is like, in land specifically, can be so costly. I remember when we were working, I first started working with you. It was the first call. We decided after the first call, I had an acquisition manager. He had to go. basically Q4 of last year. We had closed, I want to say it was about a deal a month. So we had a really, really bad Q4. Fired the acquisition manager end of Q4. I took everything back over in Q1. We ended up doing roughly 420,000 in profit in Q1. If I wouldn't have talked to you, that's what's that roughly what 140 a month if I'm doing that math right. It's 140,000 profit a month. If it would have taken me, two additional, maybe I would have got to the point where it's like, okay, this acquisition manager needed to go. But if it would have taken me 2 months to make that decision rather than just asking somebody who was like, kind of a just not a part of it, not a part of the business, just like objectively looking at this business and like intelligent in, the overall things of what needs to be done in this business, that, those 2 months would have cost me what's that, $280,000. So I would have invested in getting coached by somebody or being around a group of people that were like way more intelligent than me right off the bat because it would have saved me, afforded me, the ability to do more deals and then just quickly fine tune everything and actually start tracking things way sooner than I actually did.
So that's a great I completely agree with that. Obviously I've kind of done that in different ways. How do you've done it a couple of groups. I know that you're a part of a couple of groups. And obviously we've worked together, but how do you know? How do you know that this person is legitimate? Like what, because they're a great email marketer or internet marketers. They're really good at what they do, man. And they run an internet marketing business. So how do you know? What is your kind of criterion for finding someone that you can actually trust and you can actually work with?
Yeah, that's it. That's an awesome question. It is, more difficult to do. I would say if you can look and kind of see that their content is all about, coaching or something like that, and it's not like about deals that they're closing or something specific. You want somebody that's providing you kind of value for free, and then if you want additional things from them, that costs money. If they're like, if they got a paywall right away, and it's like, join, this, that, the other, that was kind of always someone that I kind of stayed away from. But you can also talk, if you have any sort of kind of base level knowledge within this business, you can talk to people and kind of see how intelligent they are on it. Maybe asking specific questions and understand if their real business is land or is their real business coaching, and then their coaching is just kind of this land that they're doing. So I think that's one good way to do it. Another is kind of listen to people on the podcast, see kind of how they're talking and everything like that. But I think the biggest thing is like if people are providing you value for free on, whether it's podcasts or Instagram or different things like that, maybe they have a coaching program or something like that. Those are the people that I wanted to kind of reach out to, not somebody that's just their main thing is kind of selling the course or selling you coaching on land.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's really hard to um when you are just a coach, you cannot you cannot get the real-time feedback that actually develops your craft. And so if you just coach people, you have passive feedback versus active feedback, right? And active feedback means we're changing this process for this reason. Here's how you benefit versus the passive is I'm not actually doing this business anymore. And it's really hard, man. Like even for me when I'm looking for I'm constantly looking for people. How can I pay someone to solve a constraint in my business? Right? A serious constraint. Whether that, for a lot of people, it's cheaper to hire a consultant than to bring on someone that can actually solve it, right? Because if you're going to bring on someone that's going to solve it full time, that's multi six figures, right? Period. And so you can do that. You don't have to pay the consultant or the coach. But that's always the thing. Like depending on what stage you are in your business, you can make that kind of make the payment to accelerate. So we've talked about your journey, where you are right now. What's exciting you right now in your business? People always talk about winning, like losing, whatever. But what's like, I love this part of my business, and I'm excited about growing in this part of my business.
Yeah, so for me, it was like I was always just focused on like revenue generation and profit. Like bottom line is the most exciting thing to me. So seeing that I went from 3 contracts in Q4, 12 contracts Q1, and again, contracts like contracts are one thing, but actually getting the gross profit behind it is I would take one contract for $1 million over 12 for for whatever 10,000. But contracts are profitable contracts that we're actually getting 12 in Q1, and then we're at 8 so far. So we're kind of on track for 16 ish. Hopefully, going to get a few more, getting closer to the 20. But kind of seeing that progression, as well as my time, decreasing, where we're actually like building a business here. That's the most exciting kind of thing to me right now, where we're seeing, the different changes that we're making, the KPIs that we're tracking, different things that we're doing. We're actually seeing that come to fruition in terms of contracts and profitability to the business. There's really nothing more, exciting than that, where it's like all this time that you spend on everything, it's actually working.
Dude, that's huge, right? That is the game changer. That is like I'm actually making money. This is actually working. So before I ask you my last question here, how can people get a hold of you, man? How do people get a hold of you if they want to, connect with you and talk shop? Like where can people check with you?
Yeah, definitely. So Instagram will be the best place. It's just my last name, so Blue underscore real estate. We kind of post our deals there. We might start doing a little more posting there, but we kind of post our deals, the recap. One, it's good just to kind of show what we're doing. But then two, another thing would be, it's kind of fun to look back and think, look at all the deals, look back on pictures and everything for me personally. So that would definitely be the best place to reach out is Instagram.
Yeah, man, you got to get some European photos, some European dirt. You're gonna be over there, start
Exactly.
flipping some dirt. Yeah, you're gonna
Exactly.
be at Lake Como. You're like, this is a pretty good piece of real estate. It's only 23 million euros. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So we've talked about a lot of stuff today. We've talked about, where you came from, your business. Obviously, you have a pretty impressive business, kind of your background, where you currently are in the business. Super exciting, right? The last question I have for you is this. Why did you decide to get into this business? And did you expect it to end up like what you have today?
Oh, wow. So the fast question to that is absolutely did not expect it to end up like it was like it did today. The reason I got into this business is I kind of got out of college and was weirdly focusing on kind of net worth and everything like that. Didn't really love my job or anything like that, so I was looking for some sort of business that I could start on the side. And land just I did tons of research. What I initially wanted to do was like a buying a small business or something like that, but it didn't afford me kind of the ability to live my life wherever I wanted. A lot of the businesses that you buy, pretty much all the businesses that you buy, you're required geographically to be in a specific region, and spend a lot of time in that area and everything like that. This business allows you to amass so much profit from anywhere in the world, build systems, hire international talent, so you can kind of keep that overhead low. So that's kind of the main reason that I got into this business. But again, the initial goal for getting in this business was to make 50 grand. So absolutely did not expect to did not expect anything to what we actually accomplished kind of here. So yeah, it's well beyond what I even could have pictured life looking like at this point. It's incredible.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna ask you one more question. How old are you, Landon?
I am 27.
Guys, he's 27. He's 27. He's building a business. In 12 months, he's gonna be close to $1 million of gross profit. The question is always when I hear stuff like this, I always get inspired because I think to myself, if he can do it, so can I. If he can do it, so can I. Now, of course, there was a lot of help. You're a smart guy, right? You're a sharp guy. You work really hard, and you've built this thing, man. You've built this thing. But I want you guys to hear this Landon story and know this guy has built this thing and he's designed it. He's living in Europe right now. He has this thing that he wanted to achieve. He went and chased his dreams. There's honor in that. And it took courage for you to do that. It took courage for you to go over to Europe, and a lot of people wouldn't have done that. They would have stayed and done the thing that they're in the comfort of their home. So I want to just say, acknowledge you, man. I really respect you. Respected your growth. It's been just absolutely astronomical. It's been incredibly impressive. And I think our listeners can really take away this lesson that this guy was able to do it, then you can too.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Landon. Guys, check him out, blue_real estate on Instagram. By the time that we post this podcast, I'm hoping that he has a couple more European photos up there. Got to have some European land. Thanks again, man. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.